is I'd like to give away $1 billion, which should be more than easy enough to do. I am supporting her dreams, not supporting my dreams through her. I start with who. Who do you want to become? A lot of successes come from Cameron Herold, Vivid Vision. 3 years later, we own $300 million real estate.
Hey, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Steve, man, I've been so looking forward to this, even though I stood you up, I think, twice now. We had to reschedule. I am so glad to make this happen. Dude, I'm pumped.
We were actually saying just a few moments ago before we came on air that it's been too long. I was part of your Maui Mastermind, which I absolutely loved. You came over to the Speakeasy in Hollywood. And that was super fun. Yeah, when we launched Go for Stupid. So, we keep on bumbling into each other, but I'm one of your stalkers. Now, I want to get it out of the way quickly in a non-sexual manner, I will say.
Why not a sexual manner? Man, what's wrong with me?
No, we've spoken about this, Brandon. So everyone knows you as one of the hosts of one of the largest podcasts. I know it was real estate, but it was just one of the largest podcasts out there, BiggerPockets. And they know about your focus on real estate. Anyone that watches you on Instagram, and they should, you are Beardy Brandon, they know about your real estate belief. One of the things that I really like about you and your mentality is that you don't stop there. Now, you finished BiggerPockets, you left it in good hands to be looked after. You launched your own podcast. I want to go into why, but I noticed that a lot of real estate investors, developers, practitioners, whatever you want to call it, they stay in that bubble. You are very, very focused on gaining information, advice, and just being nurtured from as many people outside of your industry as possible. And I think that gives you the unfair advantage. So the first question is, you left BiggerPockets, you launched your own podcast. Why did you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it applies to a lot of people who might have a full-time job right now and they're thinking, when do I leave the job? Should I leave the job? So BiggerPockets, I had equity. I was, part owner sort of the company. I mean, not a huge owner, but I was a part owner. Private equity owned most of it at the end when I was there. And, the company had sold a couple times now. So I was a W-2. I mean, as much as I had equity, I'm still an employee of somebody else's company, somebody else's agenda. And some people are fine going their entire life that way. And good for them. Good for you. If you can handle that your whole life, I could not handle it. There's just a number of times where it's like, I have an idea. I have something I want to do. I have a trip I need to take. And hearing the word no, it's just like it, ever since I was a little kid, the word no just grates me. And I'm like, don't tell me what to do. So it wasn't an animosity thing. It was just like time after time, it was a reminder. They can say no because it's not mine. It's somebody else's. And so it finally got to that breaking point where I said, you know what, can I do better on my own as my own business than I can do as part of a massive powerhouse like BiggerPockets. And so the scale finally tipped in my mind and I said, all right, I'm going to go do this myself. And I wasn't leaving with no capital. I had enough money. I saved up. I'd built a reputation for years. And I think that's a lesson to pull from that is I saw the end coming years earlier, and then I just worked continually for that transition. So when the transition happened, I wasn't just like, well, what do I do now? Sitting on a couch every day, just drinking coffee, hoping that an idea comes to me. I had the next thing. I had Open Door Capital, my real estate business, and I had ideas around kind of a new education platform that I would then go and venture into once my, kind of no compete stuff was over with. So I think, that's why I left it, because it wasn't mine. And I ventured into my own.
It's got to have been scary though, wasn't it?
It was definitely scary. I love to use the kind of the metaphor of when Justin Timberlake left NSYNC, right? He went on to be a massive star, even bigger than NSYNC ever was. But what about the other guys in the band? I mean, I know a couple other names, but what about the random guy that nobody knows his name in NSYNC? He didn't make it big. So am I Justin Timberlake or am I the guy that, there was no guarantee and there never is a guarantee in life. Are you going to be bigger, better than you were at the job, or are you going to just kind of fade into obscurity? And on some level, there's a more existential question around, does it matter to fade into into disappear? Nobody knows who you are anymore. Maybe that actually would have been good for me and my soul. I don't know. So either way, it kind of felt like a win regardless, despite the fear of saying, well, now I got to figure this out myself. It's now I really have to be an entrepreneur. I've talked about entrepreneurship. I've played the game. but I'm burning my ships now and I'm going to jump in and I have to make it work.
So tell us about the podcast, because it's been around for a few years now.
Yep.
Time goes quick. It's already very successful, but tell us about the purpose and the whole theme of it.
Yeah, and it shifted a little bit, and I think this is maybe an interesting lesson too. But it started very much like this is going to be more like Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson, Steve Sims. Like it's more like, who do I want to talk with? Who do I find fascinating in whatever industry? And let's just go have a great conversation. And so I interviewed some really, really cool people. And originally it was a traveling podcast. We'd go fly into a city. We record 6-7 episodes over a 3-day period. It was just a whirlwind. Like we went to Vegas, we went to LA, we went to Austin, Nashville, and did great interviews. And then every once in a while, I would bring on a friend of mine who was a real estate investor, and that show would do 5 to 10 times better than all the other ones. Like I had Tim Tebow on, who was just one of my bigger guests, who's like, world famous football player, amazing humanitarian, like just an unbelievable guest. And the following week or two, it was like a real estate investor with 20 units. And that episode just blew Tim out of the water. I mean, just destroyed Tim's episode. And so what I learned there, and I leaned into it, we made a pretty hard pivot. I said, hey, I know what my audience wants. They want real estate investing content. So I shifted back to a real estate show. And so it started with just whatever I wanted to talk about. But the lesson I learned there was that it is really hard to sell general knowledge. And when I mean by sell, it's not just monetary. It's when you don't have a niche or a niche, and I'm just like, whatever I want to do, it's doable. I mean, Rogan's proved it. Chris Williamson's proved it. Diary of a CEO, have proved it. You've proved it. But it's so much easier to have a specific thing. Like I could be teaching about how to apply gel to roof coatings, like we talked about. And I'd probably do better than if I just want to be like, I want to talk about whatever to whoever I want to talk about. So, yeah, the show is now 90% real estate focused. We get the occasional guest, like we'll get you on for sure, and we'll talk about other stuff besides real estate. Because honestly, the information real estate investors need is found with guys like you more than is, real estate lessons. They don't need to know how to buy a duplex. They need to know how to, for example, build a brand that they can then monetize later on. Like that's a more valuable skill. They just don't know it. So I have to tease them with the real estate content and then get them actual inside truth that's going to help them.
Now, we mentioned this earlier, that you look outside of your sandpit for inspiration and knowledge. A lot of people, and I've done this, I've spoken to mortgage conventions, and I found that, the other 3 keynote speakers have spoken on the same stage every single year for the last 12 years, basically regurgitating the same shit that doesn't work anymore.
Yep.
So when was your tipping point that you went, hang on a minute, I need to look outside of my playpen to get a way of disrupting what I'm doing rather than just doing what everyone else is doing?
It's a great question. I realized early on, one of the biggest mistakes I made when I started building my real estate business, I mean, this is going back 20 years, is I only read real estate books at the beginning. I read every book there was to read on real estate investing, and I got very good at real estate investing in knowledge. But I didn't know how to hire a team. I didn't know how to motivate people. I didn't know how to lead people. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know how to have influence. I didn't know any of that stuff because I didn't read anything on that. I didn't go to any conferences or conventions on that topic or any of those topics. All I cared about was the bricks and mortar, basically, of real estate investing. And therefore, I grew very, very slowly. It wasn't until really I started the BiggerPockets podcast alongside Josh Dorkin where I started interviewing really successful real estate investors. I mean, I'm talking, I had like 30 units, like a few dozen, different properties, but these guys had hundreds or even thousands. And when I asked them about what books they're reading and what conventions they're going to, it was never real estate. Because I realized like it's the personal development and the business stuff that actually impacts more. And so I shifted over. Now it's like 90-10. I'm 90% reading either personal development, business, or entrepreneurship style books. And maybe 10% more tactical real estate stuff. And same with the events that I attend, the podcasts I listen to. Because unless I fix what's up here, like I can't fix what comes out of my hands. Like I can't build something special, different in my business unless I fix what's in my brain. And my brain is the problem. So how do I fix my brain is listening to guys like you, not listening to how to buy a duplex. And so that's kind of when opinion changed and I broadened. And now today, if I can pull inspiration from anything. In fact, one of my favorite interviews I ever did, you should look up this guy. His name's Tommy Mello. Do you know Tommy at all? You ever heard of Tommy Mello?
I'm actually keynoting on Tommy Mello's event with Jocko Willner. We're the two keynotes in, got to give him a big shout out quickly, Freedom 24 in September in San Diego. So yeah, I know Tommy.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Tommy was one of my favorite, is one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the show. Built a garage door company.
Yes.
Right? But I took so much from him, from that interview that I did with him, plus a couple times we've seen each other in person, because I learned what a great CEO does. Like, how does a CEO of a $1 billion company operate? And so I've picked up more from him than I probably picked up from any real estate investor. So yeah. The long story short is, if you want to scale your business, if you want to grow your business, look at what business owners are doing outside of your industry, and then you can adopt the principles for your own.
A lot of people like to look at the industry they're in and go, the problem I'm not making a lot of money is because of the industry. And then you meet people like Tommy Mello that sells, hey, Tommy, I love you. You know I love you. But sells garage doors, the kind of thing that you think, right, you buy once, you never do anything again with. And his is hundreds of $1 million industry.
Yep.
And he does that because he didn't look at fitting in. He looked at disrupting. Yeah. Now, I know, I watch, I follow you on Beardy Brandon on Instagram. In fact, on Instagram, you're now at 406,000 followers. Dang. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you've got this attitude on there that, hey, the rough seas make brilliant sailors.
Yes.
In this world that we're in now, it's very easy for us to go, oh, woe is me, politics, war, inflation, interest rate, and come up with a multitude of excuses to hopefully kind of pacify. I don't know what the benefit is, but you're in real estate, and real estate, let's be blunt, is tougher today. Yeah. Now, it was everyone was making money when it was 2% interest rates.
Yes.
But it's tougher today. How do you focus on your mindset in a rough sea?
Ooh, dude, what a great question. How do I focus on my mindset in a rough sea? A couple of thoughts come to mind. Number one, I'm actually thinking literally this year. It's been a rough year. It's been a hard year. We've slowed down our purchasing pretty dramatically because the interest rates are harder, making deals hard. So how have I navigated this year and tried to maintain good mental stability? A couple of things. One, I always remember that all business, and real estate's included in that, is cyclical. So things go up, things go down, things go up and down. So anytime I'm tempted to base my mood off a short-term situation, the advice I always tell myself, and I literally say these words, I say zoom out. Like, zoom out, Brandon, zoom out. And it's like when I zoom out and I see a big picture of a 30, 40, 50-year career, I'm like, oh, well, there's a 1 year, 2 year problem of interest rates. I'm going to be okay. So number one is I just remind myself all the time to zoom out. Number two is I try to remember, this is all for a purpose. What is that purpose? Or what am I doing this for? It's so I can have a better life. What does that mean? I want to spend more time with my family and my kids. Oh, so if there's a slowdown in buying and I don't have to work quite as much because I'm not buying as much, I get to spend more time with my kids and my wife. Wait, isn't that the whole goal of what I'm doing? So in other words, I reframe the negativity into kind of a Jocko Willink style where he'll be like, good, no matter what it is, it's like good. I'm like, oh, good. It's a slowdown. We're not buying as much. Let's spend more time with the family. So I randomly, this is a fun story too. And I wouldn't have been able to do this if it was a busy year. 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I was in Seattle for an event. I've got this group called the 50. It's literally just 50 dudes. And we meet together once a quarter. And it's all real estate focused millionaire guys. So we're in this event. I'm hanging out with them and I'm about to fly back to Maui where I live. Maui, is great. I love Maui, but I moved houses and I'm in the middle of the move. And so I'm sitting there 4 hours before my flight. We're packing for the airport from the hotel. And I was like, I don't want to go back. So I go to Google Flights. I go to Google Flights and I type in Seattle direct flight to anywhere. You can put in anywhere as an option for where you're traveling. And it'll show you anywhere that has a direct flight. And I see Seattle direct flight to London. And I'm like, $600. That sounds pretty great. So on a whim, 4 hours before I'm supposed to leave to go back home to Maui to go and finish moving all my boxes and everything from my one house to another, I just changed plans and I took my whole family over to London. And then we went out to the countryside, stayed at a Four Seasons out there in the kind of the west side of London, maybe an hour and a half outside. And then we went to, I know you're from from the UK. We went to a nature preserve down southeast, like an hour southeast of London, where you stay the night at this like zoo basically. And there's like rhinos running around. You go on a safari. Like what? It was an incredible week of family and fun and whatever. And we just were able to do it on a dime. Like just literally just like, let's just go to London today. And we went. So did I actually accomplish my purpose? So long story short, was that beneficial? Of course it was. So the slowdown led to me having a better life. And so it's just a reframing and an adjustment. Now I'm not so sad about about having a hard year.
I'm interrupting this podcast for 35 seconds to give you more value. If you are an ambitious entrepreneur looking for the opportunity in everything you come across, don't just listen to this podcast. Imagine taking part in these conversations every week. Imagine having a new network of creative and disruptive entrepreneurs to support and push you into becoming the person you can be. With this high level and exclusive community, it exists. Head to simsdistillery.com to learn more. A lot of business owners are married to their business card. You ask someone, hey, what do you do? And straight away they recite that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest attractions I had of you was your commitment to your family and your lifestyle. And you got your family and your lifestyle by what you did. And it was in that order. It was in that priority. You meet a lot of business owners that, I want to get this, I want to buy the car and I want to buy the watch and I want this. How do you educate them? Because I know you coach. Yeah. So how do you educate them that, hey, do you want to get your priorities in order first? How do you do that?
Yeah, I have a practice I call identity-based goal setting that I teach quite a bit. And the idea is most people set goals based on what they want to have, right? I want a car, I want a house, I want a jet, I want a vacation, I want $1 million. What they want, and then they set goals based on that. But it's kind of that classic line of like, you can spend your whole life climbing a ladder to only realize it was leaned against the wrong wall. That wall is like your identity. So I always start every goal setting practice that I do with people and in all my kind of organizations, I start with who, not what. So who do you want to become? Like what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? But then what is your actual identity statement? My primary identity statement that I say and I've written down is like, I'm a loving and patient husband and father. Like that's my part of my identity statement. Now, based on that, if that is my primary identity, and I have several different identity statements. I've even been playing with like an AI tool that that's not done. I'm not going to promote or anything like that, but I'm playing with this AI tool that will help you like build an identity statement, which is pretty cool. So anyway, that might be fun to get out there someday, but it's like, what do I want my identity statement to be? And you can use ChatGPT for this. Just put in a bunch of stuff that you value and ask it to help you come up with an identity statement and then be like, make it sound more epic. And then it'll make it just sound ridiculously cool. And so, if that's the identity, now I can base goals off of that. So that's one thing I do is I do identity-based goal setting. The second practice there is, and this is a very like common coaching kind of a thing, but I still love it and I still use it and I teach it, is like that wheel of life where you have like this wheel and it has kind of all the categories of life. Now people divide it different ways. I have 10 different categories. So your career, there's your finances, there's your marriage or relationships, there's your parenting, your environment, like the world around you, your spirituality, your growth and learning. You get the idea. Your health and fitness. And then you basically rank every one of them on a scale of 1 to 10. And you kind of shade outward in the circle. And by the way, I do this every quarter. Every 3 months, I do the same practice and I keep my wheels and I can go back and look and see how I'm doing and where I'm improving. Because now I get to see what actually matters. It's in an objective moment where I can look at my life and say, where am I flat on this wheel? Where am I struggling? Where am I at a 3 out of 10 where I should be at a 7? And then I set identities around those. So I have an identity statement for each of my 10 categories of life. And then I set goals based on the ones that I most want to improve. So the surprising thing is business and money is almost never the thing that I end up working on. It's usually a relationship type of a thing, or it's or maybe a spirituality type of a thing. And I try to keep money as one of my goals every quarter in some way because that keeps the engine going. But yeah, so those two practices really, if I continually evaluating my life in all categories and then basing my self-improvement upon what needs to be worked on in that, based on identity and not based on just what I want, I tend to be a more balanced, well-rounded, I think, individual.
How important for you is it to bring your wife into these conversations?
So important. Yeah, we started goal setting together. This is one of the best marriage tips I could possibly give anybody, is we started setting goals together years ago, probably 10 years ago. We'd go to the beach every January 1st, this is before kids, BK. And we would go to the beach and we would sit down we used to do an overnight, and then it became, we got kids, it was like a 4-hour date, and then we got another kid, it became a 2-hour date. But we'd go to the beach and we'd sit there and we just ask ourselves, like, what do we want in our life over the next 5 years, 10 years? Like, who do we want to be as a couple? Who do we want to be as parents now? We look at all the categories and we do it together. And here's the thing that makes it so powerful. Originally, I would set goals like, I want $1 million net worth, and I want a $10 million net worth, and $100 million net worth, and I would be like, I'm going to build this business that does $1 million a year. And she would be like, I want to drink more water. And I'm like, oh, come on, honey, you gotta get a real goal. Come on. And she's like, well, I want to drink more water. I feel like I'd feel better if I drink more water. I'm like, no, honey, let me teach you how to set a goal here. We want to do a BHAG. We want to, and finally I had to learn. I'm like, oh, what matters to me and what I think is a good goal is very different than what her goals need to be. Her goals are typically now around her health, around the kids, around her household, around her being like how she wants to show up as a wife. And as soon as I stopped trying to set goals for her and instead just kind of gave her a framework and let her set her own goals, now I know what she cares about and works toward. And so, for example, now I know she cares about drinking more water. So guess what I did? I went and bought her a water bottle that has like throughout the day, kind of like the little notches in it. That made me that meant so much to her because I'm supporting her dreams, not supporting my dreams through her, if that makes sense. Right. And so now every day I know what she's working towards. I know the goals and the aspirations she has. And when I can back those up and help those just in little ways, whether it's encouragement or asking her how it's going, I'm now seen, and I'm a tremendously different husband than I was when I was just trying to push my own goals and my own agenda. And we're working together on it. So yeah, huge.
Any of that come from Cameron Herold's vivid vision?
I mean, a lot of my life has come from, like, a success has come from Cameron Herold's vivid vision. And like, part of my whole story that I don't have to go in the whole thing, but I literally read that book on an airplane and I was like, shoot, I need a bigger vision. And so I wrote a 2,500 word vivid vision newspaper article written 3 years in the future about my business. And I said, I own $50 million of real estate. At the time I owned one, like I had $1 million. I was like, I'm going to own $50 million of real estate. I'm going to have 12 employees. We're going to have 1,000 units. And I owned 30 at the time. And I'm like, I had no idea how I was going to do this. I had no team members, no employees. I was still doing BiggerPockets full time. And 3 years later, we didn't own $50 million of real estate. We owned $300 million of real estate. And then we went on to buy $1 billion total. So I'm just crossed the $1 billion real estate mark. None of that would have been possible without Cameron Herold's vivid vision. I'm the biggest proponent of that, because if you don't have a vision, if you don't have that North Star where you're headed, like how do you make the million course corrections every single day that are going to get you closer to that? It's like an airplane taking off from New York trying to get to LA. It's like, it doesn't go in a straight line. It makes a million little course corrections, but it knows where it's going so it can get there at a fairly efficient manner. But yeah, Cameron Herold, man, that book changed my life.
He's a great guy. He's a mutual friend of ours. So big shout out to Cameron. He's a lovely fella.
He is.
So what's next for you? What's your next BHAG? What's your next challenges? I know that, I was part of your Maui mastermind.
Yeah.
It was a great environment. I always believe any event is, whether you like it or not, an extension of the person that put it on. It carries their personalities. You've been to my speakeasy, so the speakeasy is an extension of me. Yeah, I believe the Maui Mastermind was very clearly an extension of you and your love and your spirituality. I had a great deal of fun there. Now, you haven't done one since, and it's been a few years.
Yeah,
and you're doing it again.
Yeah.
Why, when, and what's the hope in it?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how like this year's been a hard year. And so when I started thinking of like, what would I want to do that would be just fun? And I also looked around at my friend group. I looked around at all the people that I just love on this planet, that I hang out with the most, people that have moved out to Maui, that are here now, like my best friends in the world, people I talk with, people I do business with. I looked at them and I'm like, oh, 90% of them came from the Maui real estate mastermind, like at some level. Because over the years, we had probably 100 people total over like 2 or 3, 4 years come to them. But I built such great lifelong friendships through that. And we never made a lot of money. In fact, we lost money on a number of them. And so, but I look at my life on how much better my life is because of it. So really that it started with what could bring some joy into my life. And it started there. And I said, well, doing another one of those Maui real estate masterminds would be fun. So we're going to do it again. And that's a big piece of what I'm doing. I got way too many businesses all the time. I think I'm running 6 of them right now. So all of them, I just different phases. I got a mortgage company that we do hard money loans and conventional loans. I got a company called First Deal, firstdeal.com. It's like literally just like, here's how to get your first deal. So I got all those. I'm just going to kind of keep plugging away at each one, trying to make them all grow a little bit. I'm going to hire a CEO for the enterprise level. That's next. How do I become Richard Branson? I got to hire a number 2. So if I don't know how to even find that guy, but how do I find? Yeah, that's the next step. I got to find myself a Cameron Herold, somebody who can just step into the entire organization of everything I run and just take over.
Have you come across a guy called Ari Meisel?
I've not.
Ari Meisel is, he's got his own story, was apparently going to die, built up this whole system of being able to automate and monkey learn your life. And as entrepreneurs, we think we're wild, but there's a lot of things that we do that we become addicted to. We have a cappuccino at 11 o'clock. We do this. We feed the dogs at 5. And he basically broke this down into automating his life so that if he passed away, his family wouldn't have to worry about certain stuff. And he actually, choreographed this whole thing. And he didn't die. Great news. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Still kicking around. But he actually wrote a book called The Replaceable Founder.
Okay.
And he talks about how to become replaceable. And I've got to admit, he was one of my coaches, and he spoke at a New York mastermind many, many years ago. But I'll give a public shout out. Read that book, Replaceable Founder. In fact, after this, I'm going to introduce the pair of you because I think you two would. There you go. That's the power of connection, isn't it? Dude, but I'll make that introduction.
You have always been amazing at that. In fact, I think you were the one that first introduced me to Cosm.
Yes.
And
from Fargo, what is it? Fargo to Chow or something?
Yeah.
I remember the video.
Dude, you introduced me to Cosm, and he is now like one of my best friends on this planet. We talk every week, if not multiple times. Dude, that I never thanked you properly for that. Like, Cosm is one of my favorite human beings, and that was because of you, man. You're a good connector. That's what you do. Yeah.
I'm a careful connector.
Yeah, that's good.
Then that's I think where a lot of people go wrong. They use their connections as though they are the power. The connection should know that it's going to benefit both parties and you least.
Yeah.
And Cosm's come up to me. I remember being in Cosm's, going out for dinner with him in Arizona, and he was talking about you, and he wanted to get involved in this, and he had the capital, and I knew he had the credibility, and I knew he was a good person. I knew that you and him would get on. So I literally just reached into my phone, recorded a little message and sent it over to you. And then you both met in the speakeasy in Hollywood.
Yep.
And he has actually thanked me. He's nicer than you. He thanked me. But he thanked me for that relationship. But I'm always happy. And I'm telling everyone this is, if you think you're a connector, and I don't think I am, but make sure your connections value and look after the people in the introductions first and you least. And I just want to see good people do great things. So I am pleased that that's actually taken off. Your podcast, we've spoken about the new podcast. Anyone that's looking at getting into real estate, yes, listen to Brandon. But anyone that likes to challenge themselves with big goals, I'm urging them to listen to Brandon as well. Follow him on Instagram. We've already said, Beardy Brandon, your podcast, where can they listen to this new podcast of yours? Yeah,
if you have one of those like old school record players and you get the record from the store, it won't work. You can find me everywhere on podcasting. But yeah, as much as I love real estate, I can teach real estate all day long. working on a framework. I'll make it into a book at some point, but I'm calling it REIOS, like Real Estate Investors Operating System. But it actually has nothing to do with real estate. What I'm most passionate about teaching is, and I've been teaching people, is like this kind of 6-step framework. And I'll just throw it at you right now. So kind of a leaving remarks, I guess, for the day is like, if you tell the truth about where you're at in life, meaning your position, whether it's financial or your health, your marriage or whatever, tell the truth. Define your future self. So who does you want to become? Again, we talked about identity, right? So where are you at right now? Who do you want to become? What does that look like? Set a vision. This is Cameron Herold, Vivid Vision stuff. Set goals, annual, quarterly, even weekly, that all line together. I call it goal alignment. I got a lot of that from The One Thing, the book The One Thing, Jay Papasan, Gary Keller. So you align your goals together. Then you attach actions or habits to that. So what actions and habits would I have to do in order to hit my goals? So if you want a better marriage, more date nights, right? More sex, whatever those things are, define them, track them. So that's the fourth component, is track your habits and your actions. I gamify it every single week. I literally have this habit tracker, and I just check or dash. Did I do it or did I not do it? And then the fifth component is get some accountability, whether it's a buddy, whether it's a group, whether it's a coach. If you can afford a coach, hire a coach, because that's going to be the most high level intensity of that. But however you can do, just make sure you're not doing it alone. Get some accountability. So on your actions and habits. And then just the last step is continually improve. Just get better all the time. Look at what you did wrong, like you did. Say, how do I do it better next week? And then just do it better. And that cycle right there of tell the truth, define your future self, align your goals, track your habits, get accountability. I call it radical accountability, and then continual improvement. No matter what your problem is in life, whether it's you want to grow your business, your marriage, your parenting, you can do it. Just follow those 6 steps. You got it.
I approve and agree with absolutely every single one of those steps. And the biggest one I will just embellish a bit is the first one. Tell the truth to yourself.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, we can sit there and we go behind it'll be okay. I'll pull out of it. And as entrepreneurs, we do actually sometimes manage to rescue something and go, holy crap, how did I pull that off? That sometimes we can buy into our own PR, and that can usually be the thing that upsets you. So you've got to tell the truth to yourself. I'm in shit. I need help. I need to speak to someone. And I know you're all about community, because I'm a great believer that, hey, in a bar fight, we can maybe win one-on-one, but when we're an army, we can take over countries. So I believe a community is very important. I know you push them very hard. I know you're part of Tribe. I know you're part of your community behind the podcast and behind your speaking gigs. But if you were to announce today your 10-year crazy goal, what would it be?
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. I want to give away, it's going to sound ridiculous, and it says ridiculous to say it out loud, but that's what a BHAG is I'd like to give away $1 billion. And that, again, it'll sound ridiculous, but the math is actually pretty simple. If I have the Better Life Tribe, which is my kind of accountability mastermind where we do that whole thing, if on average people are paying $500 a month to be in this, which some people are paying less, some are paying more, that's 10,000 people total, which we're at 1,200 right now, but 10,000 people paying $500 a month is $60 million a year. If I can operate that business on $10 million a year, which should be more than easy enough to do, that's $50 million a year in profit. That is $1 billion company, potentially up to $1 billion company. And if not, I can just give away $50 million every single year, for 20 years, and then get to $1 billion as well. So my BHAG is to give away $1 billion, and I'm gonna do it, man. Not an impossible thing.
I remember you announcing that when you were in Hollywood at the Speakeasy, and I remember Custom going, I want to be part of that. And I know that's when you two really started kind of like hitting it off. So I'm pleased that you have that goal, and I'm thrilled that there are people that are going to be impacted by your goal. So I appreciate it. Brandon, where do you want people to go and find out more about you?
Yeah, you can come to my house. I live out here in Maui. I'm just kidding. You could.
Don't be saying
come
that.
hang out with me. Yeah, come hang out with me at Akamai Coffee in here in Maui. I go there every day. Instagram. I'm an Instagram nerd. So Beardy Brandon on Instagram. I got a YouTube channel, Beardy Brandon on YouTube. I got, Beardy Brandon pretty much anywhere. BeardyBrandon.com. It's you can get my text message newsletter, goes out every week with whatever book I'm reading. So all that good stuff and more.
Appreciate you, Brandon. Thank you so much for being who you are and coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. You know what to do. If you love it, share, subscribe, but more than anything, do something with it. And remember, life's too short to play it safe, so disrupt, connect, and grow. See you next time.